This is Mediocre Brothers. We're going to have ourselves a bit of a mixed bag today, going over video game exclusives, crossplay, and Game Pass. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to our Spotify, Twitter, YouTube, and our Rumble channel so you always stay up to beat on what's going on. We're going to go ahead and hit with our very first question. So, first one is, how do exclusive games shape the identity of a console brand, and which exclusive has defined your favorite console the most?
I think Nintendo is probably the king of this, considering Mario is the entire brand, and it's almost like 70% of their library is a game with him in it.
Okay, I'm gonna come clean. I needed you to repeat the question only because I was focusing on something. Sorry.
Okay. So question number one: how do exclusive games shape the identity of a console brand, and which exclusive has defined your favorite console the most?
It definitely speaks to what the audience is, because if I had to put it in the broadest strokes possible, Nintendo clearly focuses on family. God damn it. Clearly focuses on family oriented content. PlayStation used to be about action, but ever since the PS4, I want to say they've made this hard switch into super, people call them movie games, but they're incredibly heavy narrative based, minimal gameplay, mainly story, even if the story is shit. And then Xbox is doing its best. I don't know how else to describe it. Xbox just kind of does whatever they feel like. I think they're mainly about action games, I guess. It's just stuff. I don't know. Xbox doesn't have a real fucking identity anymore.
Well, now they're just a mixed bag, but before I feel like they were more adventure and shooters, especially since
Definitely
their mascot is Halo.
Shooters for sure, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was focused on shooters. Nowadays, I don't know what the fuck they are, but if you were going to ask me in the past, yeah, I'd agree with that. That was mainly about shooters.
Now they're just a mixed bag of everything.
Yeah, consoles had when you said PlayStation, people would be like Crash Bandicoot, and then Sega would be like Sonic, and Xbox Master Chief. So there were at a time, I guess, where mascots were really important to their brand, but I feel like that kind of disappeared a little bit, even though PlayStation has PlayStation Studios, and you see that banner fly up that showcases basically just Santa Monica and Naughty Dog games, and then Horizon.
Well, I mean, I think the only ones that really have the exclusives themselves is still Nintendo. I mean, that's kind of where it comes back to. Everybody keeps asking, people doing emulation.
No. Well, I was just saying, PlayStation still guards their exclusives pretty heavily. We're only seeing the barest hint of them starting to dish out their exclusives, because Helldivers is about to come to Xbox. But we're still, I think they'll roll in their graves before they give Xbox God of War or anything like that. But Xbox is really recently the only one that's been so far the most caring is sharing with their IPs, essentially, since Gears of War is about to release, everywhere but Nintendo. And it's not that they wouldn't, it's just I don't think a Switch could handle Gears of War remastered.
Yeah. I was going to say, Microsoft is a little bit more open and friendly with their IPs, probably because a lot of the ones that they had purchased were already multi-platform, and so it happens to be their IPs now. If you think, Master Chief, yeah, that was an Xbox game, and then you could play it on PC, but Microsoft doesn't really care, considering that you're playing on their operating system anyways, so whatever. But they didn't have a cast of games that PlayStation or Nintendo even had. So when we're looking at their modern library that were exclusively on Xbox, outside of probably Gears, it's oh well, I mean, Bethesda games are on everything anyways, and if they gave Fable to everybody, that would be kind of interesting. But I mean, I'm not really, you can play Doom on everything. It's yeah, but you always could, so it's not super exciting to me. Yeah, you can play Doom literally on anything. PlayStation's their latest thing with their timed exclusives, because it's almost is this really an exclusive or a timed exclusive? But I feel like it's just a way for them to try to milk some more consumers by porting it over to the PC for Horizon or God of War. But from any time I've seen them do that, it's always met with large complaints of terrible optimization for PC or something, and then eventually, a few patches here and there, and then people can play it. But those
The modders
games
will
are
fix it.
usually 2 years later.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been on the receiving end of that. I don't, if it comes out on PC, I don't know, but yeah, that's all I've always heard is that there's like it's really poorly optimized for PC to the point that it's just barely playable at like release.
Yeah.
And it just seems that they're doing it for no other reason than just to appease people. And they're like, well, we wouldn't, who doesn't like more money? We've got our money's worth out of this exclusivity, so we'll just release it on PC, so we'll get more money out of it.
Well, I mean, hasn't games come out more often that they're actually becoming more a part of PlayStation, Xbox? I mean, listen, I do know that they do give a little bit out to the Switch now, since that's the new hardware out there. So they were trying to make a game. They try to make it for multi-platforms, but it's, the games themselves, I haven't seen much of them being too exclusive as they used to back then, right? It's like everybody's trying to create games to make sure they're going on multiple platforms so they can sell their product.
Well, you have Ubisoft, which is notoriously multi-platform developer. A lot of the times, what you the Wii U, for example, had some kind of deal with like EA or something, so they got Mass Effect on the Wii U, which I don't know if anybody's even seen that performance, but it was kind of weird. But they were trying to get these people to develop games for their console just so they can get kind of other people over to them because their library is really small, which is kind of probably why they're bringing Metroid Prime back and probably going to look into their, other IPs to revive the franchises so that they have their lineup of games kind of hits every target that are completely their IP, so they don't really have to share. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that, but
I feel like putting your games on PC is just like an easier step than just having it on other consoles, because regardless whether you put it legitimately on PC or not, people are just going to start ripping your games off of your discs and consoles anyway. So you might as well take the initiative and have it available on PC so you can at least make money off of it rather than letting the pirates do what they want.
Well, I think it also, in that same vein, it's like it probably makes it easier for them once you port it over to PC. So if they want to hold out as much as possible. Plus, I don't think a lot of especially Nintendo would be scared of this, but I don't think PlayStation's a big fan of it either. As we saw with easily with Stellar Blade, the instant you put it on PC, the modders go crazy, and
well, that only makes it more popular too.
Well, it makes it more popular, but I'm telling you, we all know that brands don't like that, though. Brands want their stuff to stay clean. They want it to be within their own boundaries. A lot of people don't, a lot of publishers and, owners of games don't fucking care and will give you mod support, a la Bethesda. They don't give a fuck. But, I'm sure people don't want, I'm sure PlayStation didn't want people go around modding shit, but at some point they're like, well, what do we want more? Do we care more about that or, money? So...
Yeah.
Well, I was looking at for, exclusive games themselves. I mean, before then, and now it's kind of making a change. The Final Fantasy series itself for PlayStation was like the way to go. And now, they've been able to move forward with going through Steam or through Xbox and such. So it's now more open. And that was kind of like for me, that I would always be looking forward to a PlayStation because they were like fantasy based, everything like high graphics ends. They were trying to basically have you sell that way. But if you wanted to buy a PlayStation, you wanted to play those specific games, you'd go that route. And now they're becoming a little bit more open ended to where people are trying to work around getting the product out to, Steam is like a huge source where everybody's getting their collaborations done. And then they have the other opposition of everybody being their own kind of thing. But it's still kind of like, it's not as big as it used to be back then, where everybody was really like, you were a PlayStation fan or you were an Xbox fan, Nintendo fan. Now they're kind of like intermingling a little bit.
Is that mainly because PlayStation moved away from the Eastern market and also moved their headquarters to California? So their exclusivity for Asian developers slowly dwindled. So because now isn't Final Fantasy 16 going on Xbox?
Yes.
Yes, it is, and I think that's a natural progression. I'm not exactly sure if Final Fantasy 13 was on Xbox 360, but Final Fantasy was Nintendo, then it moved to PlayStation. You get a couple spin-off games back on Nintendo, but it's Asian developers are going to kind of stick with the other consoles that are Asian developed consoles, where you have Xbox, who I went into a game store in Japan, and they had an entire floor of this multi-floor mall that was specifically Nintendo, and then they had a floor for PlayStation. Xbox had a little corner kiosk. It just wasn't popular there. So the developers there are not going to develop for that console with their first thought. They're going to be like, well, where are our players at? And then, we might tailor the market a little bit more because the numbers are still decent on PlayStation overseas. So now that Xbox has some staying power, they are probably going to be like, okay, well, we can, kind of spread our wings a little bit more since the console does have, a much larger user base because they really didn't care at the time. I thought it was kind of silly because it's like, well, where's the Xbox stuff? And it literally was just like an end cap on an aisle where a handful of games were. I think it was 360 at the time because the games that were out was near, not Automata, but the original.
Yeah. I think it's funny because Xbox is definitely, it's within the past couple of years, has made big pushes to get more Japanese games on their console, because that's always been like a really, thing that they've been lacking is any Japanese or even overseas IPs. I don't know what's going on with them and Atlas, but they seem to be very buddy nowadays because like every Persona thing gets put on Game Pass now. I don't think Persona 5 Royal has. Well, I'm thinking what I'm trying to say is I don't understand the relationship. Obviously they don't own them, but they've been very buddy with them, and like there's been shit tons more of Japanese games being put on Xbox in recent years because it's just been a thing that they've been lacking for a long time. And they are just the kinds of games that are different from Western style games in a lot of ways. So
yeah, they're probably building up their freaking empire because now it's just like going up and up.
Well, there was like if you wanted to play Western RPGs, we talked about those like a long time ago. But play Western RPGs, you played on Xbox. You want to play Japanese RPGs, you played on a PlayStation or Nintendo. That's kind of how it always was. So Microsoft, seeing the popularity of these games, striking a deal with them to be like, hey, we need a wider library for a wider player base. It's just a natural progression of things.
Yeah, because I remember at one point that the Eastern market got incredibly pissed at PlayStation because they were mainly focusing on the Western market. And then there was like a huge flash sale of Xbox consoles that were being sold in the Eastern market. So it's probably starting from that point. So they started like, hey, well, we don't have a lot of the Asian games for you on our console, but we're building up to it. And so let's start with your favorite Persona.
All right. So let's go ahead and jump into our second question. So, second question is, what motivates developers to prioritize crossplay in their games, and how does this impact the design process?
That's going to be kind of a tough one, right? Because when they're designing this game, they're going to want to design for the largest player base that they possibly can. But then you got consoles that'll have certain rules for their ESRB ratings, and it has to kind of comply across all things with that. So I think about Fortnite is a good example that it runs on everything and everybody can play together, but you might have some games that are what is that game, the First Company or something, or that free to play shooter game that's kind of like Destiny.
Warframe? You mean Destiny?
No, there's that first person. It was like it was kind of mediocre, but then all the waifus, and then everybody's like, "Oh snap, First Descendant." Yeah, like that's not going to be on Nintendo because of the mature rating that it has. So but you could play it on Steam and stuff with other people. So
yeah,
I think. No, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's weird because even with like the success of certain games, it still doesn't happen for whatever reason. Because one thing that does come to mind is freaking Elden Ring, which is like one of the most sold games from software, but for some reason it's not crossplay, and neither is Night Rain. So even with as much success, I don't know what incentive they need in order to make it, but I also don't know like the specifics if they need their own server or they have to work with whatever company that they want in order to make a server dedicated to everyone.
I wonder if it's a balancing act with like expected hardware performances. So it's like I'm playing because it's PvP, and I mean you could say that doesn't matter because of other games that are crossplay that don't care. But I'm PlayStation, I'm playing against another user that's a PlayStation, whereas somebody on PC is playing against somebody on PC, and it might just be kind of a security measure as well as a almost fairness measure.
I mean,
Something
the
for
only
anti-cheat stuff. I don't know.
the only significant difference would be from consoles to PC, because PCs can be built in any like way that you want. While meanwhile consoles are more or less the same. It just depends on like the generation that you're on. But I mean, I don't think Elden Ring or Night Rain is available on the previous generation, just the current one.
Yeah. Good one.
Well, I don't think like crossplay doesn't benefit the owners of like the consoles. I don't think hardly at all. I think it comes down to, because it only benefits multiplayer games, obviously, because so like it benefits in the sense that it gives more life, more players to the game, literally the lifeblood. Like when, as I just said, Helldivers is right around the corner for being released on Xbox, and everyone's excited about it because that's going to be a whole new batch of players added to the pool of people playing, right? So it just gives more of a lifespan to the game. Now, I don't know what hoops a developer has to jump through in order to make that happen, because clearly there's already systems in place for the connectivity between all the consoles, right? I don't know who they have to get to say yes. I'm sure they probably have to cough up more money, which is the only reason I can think of as to why maybe Night Rain. Because I mean, don't get me wrong, I would have loved to have Night Rain crossplay, so I didn't have to resubscribe to PlayStation Plus, but maybe they were just doing it cautiously because maybe they didn't want to cough up whatever money that would have cost them, because since Night Rain was an experimental thing, they just wanted to see how it would do first, and maybe a year down the line we'll see an update, because post launch update to get crossplay is not unheard of.
Yeah.
So they could easily probably do it if they wanted to, whether they not. I think they might just be sitting and waiting and seeing what the staying power of it actually is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because I mean, why spend all of the money up front if experimental game? It's it's literally just a safe bet.
Exactly, and it's still FromSoft, so they probably do have the money to throw around if they wanted to. But again, they're probably just hedging their bets. They're not putting all their eggs in one basket or anything like that. However much money that costs them, because that might be something that they have to pay for some kind of publishing licensing something, because obviously having crossplay means there'll be less traffic funneled towards whatever console there is, since people have the free range to pick whatever. I think the only difference is that, as Edwin said, probably the biggest difference is when you're connecting console. Like for PvE games, I don't understand. Like there shouldn't be any issue at all. But when the difference comes with PvP, because people on PC people don't like console people having aim assist, and console people don't like playing against people with mouse and keyboard, because I've done both, and I can say with very much confidence that aiming is much easier with a mouse and keyboard in an FPS anyways. But that being said, I can understand the frustration of fighting against someone who you perceive having an advantage because the game is fucking aiming for them in your eyes. Like, I get it. So that's kind of like
for situations like that, they usually have an options to turn off crossplay or to turn it off or turn it on. Because I know Marvel Rivals had that option.
Oh yeah, they typically do. Yeah,
I would turn off PC players all the time if I'm playing on console, just because I'm like, no, I know what a mouse is for. First-person shooters.
And also opening, anytime you put something on PC, you're gonna kind of like with modding, you're gonna open your game up to be much more substantial to hackers. Not saying it doesn't happen on console, but it's much more common on PC. And then that also trickles down to the console people, and they don't want to play with PC people because there's more cheaters on that side. So as far as it comes to the actual consoles, I don't think crossplay helps anything. If anything, it's just like giving yourself social credit for allowing it to happen. It's probably more in the publishers and creators' hands, how they handle that. Obviously, that's probably one of the best inventions of the modern gaming is crossplay.
Yeah.
It is a very much a user, a consumer friendly thing to do, because you can just play with anyone no matter what console you have.
Right. You don't have to buy a new game and a new console because somebody else that has it on a different one, so you don't have to cough up more cash just to be able to play a game with somebody.
Yeah. I see it as like something that also kind of just became almost like mandatory because of the popularity with free-to-play games like Zenless and stuff like that, because they want to have the largest reach they possibly can. And this is probably a mindset coming from, previous mobile developers that are now getting into console gaming. It's how do we reach everybody, because they don't have a brand loyalty to like a single console, unless Sony came at them and was like, "Hey, I'll give you $500 million to leave the other consoles out of this," to kind of, and that's not like a made up number where they just write a big fat check. They have to do some sort of estimated loss in sales, and then be like, "We'll make up the difference in the potential loss in sales if you can leave or leave it on ours, like specifically, to see if that'll pull other people from an Xbox player." But the funny thing is, you know, basically all of us, it doesn't matter, because if it was crossplay, like you said, you would have gotten Elden Ring, Night Rain on Xbox, which you also have. So you would have ended up buying one copy anyways. Um, and it was just like, oh, well, I have to buy it on the PlayStation, even though you're going to buy it on Xbox, but we can't play it together if that was the case. It would only be something of if somebody super console loyalist where they only buy one brand and then their other friend buys another brand, and then now they can't play a game together because it's not allowing that. This is kind of weird, but
that's kind of my point, though. There must be some kind of like incentive, or rather, or lack of incentive. It's incentive for the developer to have a healthy player base by coughing up money, because I had to buy it on PlayStation, so therefore PlayStation got their cut of whatever sales numbers they get from me buying it on there, and Xbox didn't get dick squat, Plus, not only that, PlayStation also earned my subscription back because I needed it to play with you guys. So they won on two fronts. So I'm assuming the publisher must, FromSoft must have to pay something in order to have crossplay that they just chose not to.
Are there any purchases in Night Rain?
Only the DLC pack as of right now. That's it. There's not like in-game purchases, like microtransactions, but it has just that deluxe edition DLC pack. That's it.
Yeah, so the DLC would come out later this year.
Cool.
So it's something that I love, and I just kind of wish games just did it more. But it's like I said, there has to be something stopping them.
We'll see it evolve as game prices increase, because free-to-play adopting this model to get a wide audience, you'll see a lot of people are going to be paying companies to stop it, honestly. Not to say that's a good thing. I'm just saying you're going to be like, why can't they play this on Xbox? It's like, well, that's because Sony doesn't want you to.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Well, that was the Hoyoverse problem, is just like that their entire lineup of games were first available on PlayStation, and then one by one they were added to Xbox. I think like last month it was added to Zenless Zone Zero was added to Xbox for the first time.
But couldn't you play like Genshin on your phone?
Well, yeah, the thing is, yeah, you can play all the Hoyoverse games on your phone. However, the problem with that is that Hoyoverse games are a literal standard to test how good a new phone is at running games, because of how fucking hot they run your phone. So running them on your phone is not optimal. You really do want to play them on your PC or the console. That's another thing. I mean, it's nice. It's nice, right? Because I actually it's kind of in the same, because the cross play with that is your availability. So like you can link one Hoyoverse account and play it on, theoretically your phone, your PlayStation, your Xbox, being able to link your account data and play it on whatever. I literally just did it with Uma Musume, bringing it over to Steam. So now I can play it on my computer or on my phone, and it saves the same data either way, which, is kind of niche, not going to lie, but it's nice. Now I don't have to, like, if I wanted to capture footage of this game, I just have to use OBS instead of having to hook up like a fucking capture card to my phone somehow.
I thought Diablo Immortal was going to do that, and then when they said they weren't doing that at first, I was just like, well, I'm out.
No, yeah, Immortal was mobile only.
All right, well, let's go ahead and jump on to our next question. How has Game Pass influenced your willingness to explore games you wouldn't typically purchase outright?
Oh, massively. I mean, well, I'm probably the only one that can answer this like with any definitive, confidence. Because
I was going to ask Corey, because I know that he doesn't have an Xbox.
I had it on. I had Game Pass on the Ally with like a free month or something to try it out. So that was kind of neat. So I had a little bit of an experience with Game Pass, but not what Udon's about to talk about here.
Yeah, so like it influences it massively. It's almost like an ADHD situation of like there's so much shit you can just try because it doesn't cost you anything other than your time to download whatever game it is. And so many times, you know, me and my friends, someone would just find something on Game Pass. It's like, hey, check out this game, and it's like, okay, cool, and we all just download it and play it right then, boom, bang, boom, nothing. Like, and because it doesn't cost you anything, why wouldn't you? Cost you anything in quotation marks, but
you've already paid for it.
Yeah, you've already paid for it, and so so I guess, and that also has happened to me more than once, where it's like, even if it's not multiplayer, what was it that what was that game called? Fuck, what was that Russian shooter? The Soviet, the robot ladies.
Atomic Heart.
Yeah,
Atomic Heart. So that was on Game Pass. I would have literally I wouldn't have any kind of like incentive to play that game because I don't know. I look at it and I'm like, that looks all right, but it's on Game Pass, so it's like, well, I have a free afternoon and no one's around, so why not, right? It doesn't cost me anything.
So it's like
you want to see me play.
Yep, that was good.
I mean, I know people like that game, but I found it fucking boring. But but the thing is, like, I was able to try that game without having to pay full price and then being stuck with the fucking the check after the fact if I didn't like it. So it's like, oh, I didn't like that. Well, delete. Never touching that again.
It's kind of interesting because like Game Pass, and hopefully because I'm saying this out loud that they don't take it and go, oh, that's a great idea. Because I don't think it's a great idea. I'm just surprised it's the case that you have a limit on how many games you can download.
Do you? Because I never had that issue.
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Space itself.
That's what I'm saying is like if you like, I'm surprised Game Pass isn't like doing the whole, because when you see like all these, you get 100 tokens, and then when you do one thing, it costs like 58 tokens, and it's like, oh, of course, because you're trying to sell me these bundles. But like if Game Pass was like, you can get 10 games like a month, so like when you use one to try a random ass game, it's like, well, that was one of your uses, and if you want like more uses, then you subscribe to the bigger thing. And I mean, yes, that is probably the most greedy version of that practice. Yeah, it's just kind of surprising that that's not where we're sitting at, because I would be curious as how much money people are losing because you were able to download a game and try it out rather than buy it because you paid Microsoft, even though those games exist on Game Pass because Microsoft is cutting, like I said earlier, a check for perceived losses, being like, we'll pay you this much to let us release it for quote unquote free, and it's kind of silly, but PlayStation Plus does their 2 free games a month thing, and you got to pay premium if you want to access to their old library you care about. But they were giving away Veilguard for free, and still nobody got it.
So help me God, if that touches that, I will kill you.
I mean, Game Pass is pretty much the main reason why Xbox stopped doing them free monthly games, because I think most of them were being added to Game Pass anyway.
Yeah.
And it's like, you might as well just put it on Game Pass if you were trying to make people play those games anyway.
Yeah. Well, whenever a trailer, we're watching these trailers, these big announcements, and it's available on Game Pass, and it's like, well, I'm not gonna buy it. Like, that's literally the first thing that pops in my head. Cool, I don't have to pay for it. And it's almost like, Microsoft's buying it for you, and it's its own thing with digital landscape becoming more and more popular. But it's kind of like, is this a good thing? Are we moving into a good direction with this Game Pass thing? Because I could see Netflix was really cool, right? And now we have Hulu and Disney Plus and Paramount Plus and HBO Max. And so it's like, Game Pass is neat, but when are we going to run into that stupid situation where we should have just kept cable because it's the same price?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good and a bad thing, because it does contribute to the death of physical media because it's all digital and a subscription service. But at the same time, the amount of games and value you get from Game Pass, even though unfortunately that unless the game is like first party or they have some kind of special agreement, the games that they put on Game Pass do get taken off eventually. So that could incentivize you to pay for them if you were really playing it all the damn time. But
How much?
it is a good value for. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, how much is it a month for Game Pass?
So
Depends.
it depends on what one you're doing, because you have the standard one that I do, which is just $10 a month, basically. And obviously if you do like the 3 months or a year thing, or actually I think they can only do 3 months to a year. I think you can't do it month by month.
Yeah.
Point being is mine, you have Game Pass. I have the most basic bitch one, so I just had because I just wanted to have access to the multiplayer. You have like a very small selection of games you can pick from, but still some bangers, because you can get Deep Rock Galactic is one of them, and that's a great game. But then the next upgrade past that's like the full blown Game Pass, which is everything. But then the next tier above that is Ultimate, which gives you that whole Game Pass plus access to the PC Game Pass. So you have like a whole different Game Pass, and some games obviously are only on PC. And then you have more access to basically like rewards, cash back. Essentially, you do stuff and you get like points back that you can redeem for like Xbox gift cards, essentially. And it's not a bad value, because I think at the Ultimate, every 3 months I was paying $80-ish, I think, which sounds like a lot, but for 3 months at a time, with the Game Pass library is huge. So like you're never gonna run out of shit to do. Like if you didn't have money to buy a new game every month or even every 2 months, if you had enough money to buy a new game every 3 months, you might as well just pay Game Pass, because that's probably gonna benefit you more in terms of like stuff you can play.
Right.
Especially with all the new shit being added on there all the time, even brand new shit, which is good. Like Doom or something. Doom: The Dark Ages was added on there day one, and it's like, well, I can just play that right now.
Yeah.
It is a good value, but it still contributes to bad industry practices at the same time.
We're in the very beginning of getting introduced to the consequence of Game Pass. I know that it's great for me and users that want to have access. Like $80, you could buy one brand new modern game, or try a bunch of things. As long as you have good internet to download them quickly. So that's kind of nice. But like I said, we're in this world of all these streaming services because Netflix was so damn popular. So I'm curious where we're at in 10 years on this whole Game Pass thing. Whether or not everybody starts to adopt on their own version.
It's like a digital Blockbuster almost. It's just like going in to borrow games and you're just returning them back. But I do like the idea that you're not forking up a whole lot of cash up front. I mean, that is nice for people that have, a real lock on their expenses, and to say, hey, I need to pay $70 for a video game is quite challenging. So the idea that you only need to pay $25 a month for 3 months total to $80, a little bit more than that, but to be able to have all those options at your front to be able to do what you want, which is play games, that must be a really nice thing, especially people that are just challenged by how expensive games are getting.
Well, it's also they have their gateway drug too, because people who haven't started it, they'll offer it to you for God damn it, they'll offer it to you for I think it's $1 for 3 months or $3 for 3 months, really low entry point for their fucking your first hit of the Game Pass drug, and then after 3 months of being having access to all those games, well, I guess I might as well keep paying for it.
Yeah, and also to add to the death of media and the benefits of Game Pass, there's one specific thing that I always forget, that when you do have Game Pass, any game that they have on there, you can actually buy at a discount because you have Game Pass. So if there's one that might be removed at some point, then you can just buy it outright and just keep it for yourself, because
I mean, it's not huge. It's only 10%, but it is something.
And with with that Game Pass too, are you also able to do stream gaming as well? We're not just downloading the game itself, but you're able to just do a stream of the game, pull it right up and start playing it, kind of like how Stadia did it. But
now there is cloud gaming, and I can't speak to that because I think cloud gaming is cancer. But because I'm sorry, our technology is not there yet.
Right,
I've tried it and it's horrible. Some people can deal with it, but input lag I can't stand. I'm not doing it. But I don't think it's for every game on Game Pass. Only certain games have access to the cloud streaming or whatever. So that is a downside, I think. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure it's only certain games. It's probably most of the library, but I think I remember seeing it was just like only for certain games. So
I mean, I was playing Dragon Quest XI on my phone at one point, but that was like the only time. It was fairly decent, but this only because like I live in a city area, so my internet's better there.
That's crazy because Dragon Quest XI was crashing my PS4.
Well, remember it's streaming. The phone just has to display something. It's not the thing running it. So
yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into our next question. So, what are the social dynamics of playing cross-platform games with friends on different consoles, and how does it affect your gaming experience?
I think it's good.
I think. Okay. Good.
I was gonna say it's for me. It's good because, like I said earlier, like if somebody has like if Udon had the option to buy Night Rain on Xbox, that would have been fine. But there's plenty of instances where we've all played games together on different things. One of those that pops into my head immediately is just Fortnite. How you're playing on Switch and he's on Xbox, and I think Edwin was playing on Xbox or you play on PlayStation. I'm not exactly sure, but
it was Xbox.
It reminds me of like back when 360 and PS3, like me and my buddies, like roommates and stuff, we'd always be like, all right, what game's coming out, and we'd have to make sure we all buy it on the same console so we play it together. And it was primarily for games like Call of Duty, Halo 3. Obviously, you're going to get Xbox or whatever, but if there was a game that was coming out on a console, multiple consoles, you'd have to coordinate on which friend group was buying it where and whose console is their choice. So like whenever we started seeing more like crossplay stuff, it was like, oh, okay, this is easier for me to like hang out with my buddies instead of having to be like, damn it, you bought it, I don't have an Xbox, that kind of stuff.
I think the only thing that kind of sucks about crossplay, I mean, we already have a Band-Aid solution that most people jump to, is that the communication is typically awful because of crossplay. You can't use the console's party chat like Xbox's party chat or PlayStation's party chat, which is obviously what people use when they're playing games together. They don't just sit there in the game chat, but when you're crossplay, you don't have access to that, so you have to sit there and use the game chat, which is typically of much lower quality, and it is much more grating on the ears. However, it's kind of a minor complaint because Discord to the rescue, because that's just what everyone's Band-Aid solution to that is typically, especially because consoles have even started. Xbox and PlayStation have now incorporated Discord into their consoles anyways, so that already circumvents that problem. Which is probably the only thing I can say about it was the communication issue, which Discord solves. So that's really it. Because otherwise, it's just as easy as, well, usually as easy. Sometimes you have to jump through an extra hoop, like instead of inviting through. Obviously I can't just pull up my PlayStation friends list and see someone on my Xbox and just hit X to invite them. I have to go through like the in-game like friend menu of whatever game I'm playing.
Epic's launcher, your Epic friend or what.
Yeah,
to get anybody, because you can't just like send a request to a Xbox.
But again, it's a minor complaint because typically it's always as easy as just select friend, hit invite, done.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Nintendo is just like literally anything but Discord.
Well, they made their own. They just
they had their solution for online gaming, which they made an app that you can call your friends through their app that they have on their phone. And that was before they did the whole Discord thing and Switch 2. And it was like, so you want me to call my friend? Is that what that's your solution, is to just call them, but through your app instead of all the other ways that I talk to them already?
Nintendo somehow makes their fucking multiplayer shit even more esoteric than crossplay itself, just to connect on their own console.
They'll get there.
And 3 more fucking consoles.
Yeah, they're like, look, if you guys aren't sitting on the couch next to each other, you're not friends. That's how Nintendo operates. Like,
I will say this, as far as inviting them to a game, still kind of weird, but their game chat button thing, as me and Corey tried it, is fairly usable. It's not like the worst thing in the world. It's pretty easy to use, but it's still not as comfortable as Xbox's party chat IMO.
It might appear in our Wind Waker episode when you popped into. I was sailing around or something. It's just me and you chat. fucking around in a dungeon.
All right. Well, next question. How do you think the exclusivity of certain games affects the competitive balance between PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo?
It's the lifeblood, right? Because it's like everybody's going to have something for you to buy. Because if you gave somebody something that they could play on thing, then they don't need you, I suppose. So, you're going to have exclusives on consoles just because that's going to drive the customer to want the product. And it just so happens that you can also play Assassin's Creed and like other RPG adventure games and stuff like that on the console too that you enjoy, because those companies, they just sell software, versus PlayStation giving you the hardware to play it on, you to also be able to play Uncharted.
Yeah, I think that having a competitive balance is fine because it just pushes everyone to like try and have a good game on their console. But eventually, it just makes the entire community that like, I have to get a whole bunch of money just to buy the other console just because I want to play this game. And I mean, I understand it. It makes me very angry when there's like a game and I didn't have the console for it. But also the fact that I have to try so hard to make a decent console as well as a good game, which just ends up like the death of the Dreamcast, which was which was also sad. Was like, well, the only way you could play Sonic is like from that or Sonic Adventure. So,
Dreamcast
but
was so cool.
yeah, I mean, it was weird, but it was cool. But now we're like going to the point. Well, Xbox is definitely is already trying to get to that point first. Is instead of having a console exclusivity, they're just gonna own the market that everyone wants, including their competitors. So, because like if I can't have the exclusivity on my console, I'm gonna own all the games that you want exclusive on your console.
I think it's more just like, wow, people aren't paying for Xboxes of all our exclusives suck ass, so let's just make money on them somehow and put them everywhere. I think that's more the game plan.
They can't sell a good car, so instead they turn to making the road.
Yeah.
And
so I guess I'm trying to understand the question, I guess, because it's like, are you saying competitive in the sense of just like selling their consoles? Yes,
that's what I took it as.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, obviously that's Nintendo's entire fucking game plan, because Lord knows if tomorrow they're like, hey, DK Bonanza's coming out for PlayStation 5 and Xbox. Not buying it on the Switch 2. I mean, I like the Switch 2 well enough, but those games are going to run it way better. Their consoles are going to run it way better.
The console wars, or at least modern console wars, which I've started seeing circulate, people are talking about PlayStation, like, oh, PlayStation games on Xbox or Xbox on PlayStation. I don't think it's the same as it used to be when it was literally like Nintendo and Sega and then PlayStation showed up, because that was, I mean, we didn't have online gaming, so anything that was on that console was most likely exclusive. I mean, even like the Aladdin game on Super Nintendo and the Aladdin game on Sega were different, like from each other. They're not exactly the same game.
Mm-hmm.
So, like those console wars, I feel like were actually more exciting because the games on them had to be better than the other one. But if somebody bought something on PlayStation that was also on Xbox, and then the PlayStation one looked better, then no one would ever buy the Xbox one. So they try to make them look as close as possible or whatever. Like, I see all the videos all the time where they run the trailers side by side to talk about frame rates, but it's just also I've become less concerned like console wars or like exclusivity as like I got older, because when you're a kid and you can only get one thing for Christmas, it's different. But now if I really wanted something that it was going to be on something else and I knew that was coming, then I could like budget for it and try to get one. If I really wanted it that bad, because a lot of the thing about exclusivity is that you don't have access to it. But if you saved your money and bought it that way, if you really did want to figure it out.
Well, that's the whole point. The whole point that exclusivity exists is to sell consoles. But in the modern gaming being what it is, with online multiplayer being so prevalent, the existence of crossplay to replace that and again, with the increased prices and stuff, it's just like a natural evolution. Obviously, Nintendo is probably never, ever, ever, ever until like the fucking moon crashes into the earth that they're going to put their games on other consoles. But it's just it's almost an archaic concept in a way, and Nintendo's just holding fast to it. I mean, it would be nice if Nintendo properties came to everything, but it's just simply not. So I mean, I don't even bother thinking in that aspect. But
if you really want to talk about a good console war, sort of at all, ask somebody the difference between Apple and just let them go.
yeah,
Apple and Samsung.
Yeah, Apple and Samsung. God, the Android and iOS, those arguments are crazy.
I'm just saying, I fucking Android's based.
It's probably a dumb question, but is it really like revenue significant? Because Corey, you told me before that the consoles they sell at a loss anyway. But is it really is it really that beneficial to try and sell the console at a loss by limiting your market to only your fan base rather than spreading it out through the entire globe on whatever is available out there? Because one thing that always bothered me is when they made something exclusive to one console. It's just like you really make more money putting it on your specific console than just selling it to literally everyone that's available, because
Yes.
you only have like that specific percentage that you usually like always have. So it's like, is it really worth more that way than just to sell it to every single person possible?
I think
Yes.
we had this little conversation before our call. We were talking about Devil May Cry and how it maybe same different here, but you know, DMC was the reboot after Devil May Cry 4 numbers didn't really perform that well for Capcom. So they were like, well, let's reboot the series and make it more accessible to more people. And then it did even worse. So, like, having a specific target on it, it's like, do I sell something to people that, like, I guess if you make ice cream and you sell ice cream to people that like dessert, but you wanted to branch out and sell ice cream to people that also like steak, and then it's like, so you made your ice cream lovers hate it more because you changed how it you made it a steak too.
Steak flavored ice cream.
Yeah, steak flavored ice cream, and so people are just like, why did you why did you do that? Because in your hunt for more audience, you lost the one that you had. So even if you gained some, you might have ended up either right back where you started or even lower. Now, the hopes of somebody doing something like that to gain more, I get it, but you know, like if Mario was accessible on everything else instead of Nintendo, would they sell more of them? That's kind of hard to guess, but by the amount of things that pirate Mario, you'd probably assume that they would.
Well, that's kind
So,
of. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, if it was the idea that, you know, if they started to try and branch out, unless you're like selling the game itself, that you would be wanting it to be on multiple platforms and being sold all around the world, so you can make much more money that way. But as it being that you're trying to sell your own console, you don't want that to be spread out because you want everybody to buy your console exclusively. If it's going to be like, hey, I'm trying to sell the Switch 2 item, and you're finally having games out all over the place, people will have decisions to pick other things rather than just the Switch. They want to make sure it's only for this specifically, so you buy more of that product.
And it's probably why PlayStation Studios is allowing their, you know, first-party games to get PC ports, because they are trying to find a larger audience. But those games already had their life cycle. Everybody that had a PlayStation had already bought it, already played it, so they can't sell that game again to someone who already owns it, played through it. So 2 years later, they spend the money to have a dev team port it over to another thing just to see if they can't move a few more units. And you know, sure enough, you know, we saw Stellar Blade come out and do crazy numbers, and it's, you know, kind of
Attractive women.
well, it's Stellar Blade is kind of an oddball because of what the game is, but you know, when you have Final Fantasy get ported to PC and then those numbers aren't as performant as they were hoping for, you know, and they spent the money and time to do the porting, and it's like, yeah, we gained a couple users, but how much did it cost to do the port versus how many in sales did they get, and how much money did they lose to, Steam percentages and things like that. So it's more of a they could also gain more audience, but the cost of development time could also eat into that anyway. So that's where your zero ends up happening. It's just like, oh, we did it, we sold. Oh, we just flattened the balance. So okay, we could have just not done anything, and then we wouldn't have spent that money.
I think, I look at it this way because it also harkens back to what I said during that DMC conversation, is that what Nintendo does is that even if they sold, like theoretically, if they sold the Switch at a loss, they sell Switches, but then the games are what sells the consoles. And because they're Nintendo games and they have the perceived higher quality for the most part, like with DMC, I was saying that like instead of trying to like continue making quality products and expanding your player base slowly but surely, because if you keep making good games, people are slowly going to learn about them. Be like, hey, we played DMC, it's fucking good. And even people who aren't into action games are going to eventually, if they keep hearing about it over and over again, they'll be like, maybe I'll check it out. And so, god damn it. I guess I take it as Nintendo's strategy is that like they continue is basically that, right? The slow and steady, keep making quality products, and people are going to continue flocking to your console because that's the only place they can get that game at. And because it's only on their console, they get to reap the rewards of all the income. They don't have to split it with any other platforms at all. So with Xboxes, like I said, they simply do not have exclusivity power anymore. So they're starting to spread it over everything. So they're going to make a profit, just a lower one, because they're probably going to have to, wherever they sell it on, that's not Xbox, is going to have to take a cut of whatever they're selling it, right? So Nintendo's fine not hitting that button because they know people will come to them at this point. I mean, obviously, Switch 2 numbers say that for themselves. People are going to come to them for their product, which is essentially why they just keep pushing out quality. And if they keep, hard stance of, being like, if you want to play it, you have to come over here. So people are going to pay them for it.
Well, and the next question we have kind of might be already answered, but we'll go over it anyways. So, how does the day and date release of exclusive on Game Pass change the way you perceive the value of owning a console?
I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit. Can you try and repeat that again? The day and date of release of the game affects what?
Release exclusive on Game Pass change the way you perceive the value of owning a console?
I don't understand how the release date would affect that. I guess the wording of that question has me a bit confused.
I don't get it either.
Is it in regards to games coming out on launch day straight to Game Pass?
Right.
Being brought to
going straight to Game Pass when they're released.
I mean, since that's kind of targeted specifically towards Xbox, it's it just brings the value of Xbox up, because like we talked about before, previously, is the cheap cost of the monthly subscription and having the cheap cost of the subscription, having access to all these games. It's almost like you're buying an arcade machine for your house, in a sense, where you can just kind of truck along on a bunch of things. The only thing that it does for buying games is it just keeps me from wanting to buy games because I don't need to, at least for that.
I mean, it's also Game Pass, and it's available on PC as well, so it doesn't really affect consoles by itself, because you can play it on either one. So if you have one, you can still play it day one. But I mean, for the most part, it's like if you still have doubts, like the trailers or like gameplay of like early access, then I mean, it's really up to you. It's like, is it something that you feel that years later will you be playing it again? Will you play it more than once? Then you might as well buy it. But if like the first time you play it on Game Pass or not, then I mean, you might as well just play it on Game Pass and never buy it in the future.
That's pretty good. Yeah, thinking about it that way. Yeah, if you know it's a game that you're definitely going to replay over and over again, probably be an idea to buy it rather than just be renting it.
Yeah, but it's like if you play it on Game Pass for like your first playthrough, then it's like, oh cool, I played this on Game Pass and I saved myself some money, and then like I don't know, maybe like a year later, and it's like, oh, I want to play that game again. but it's like not on Game Pass either. But you play it's a year later since the day you played it. You might as well get a discount also getting a pre-owned copy or something.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of figured that was going to be a little bit of a quick one, but I just wanted to see what we had to say on that one. So the next question is, what role do exclusive games play in driving innovation with the gaming industry, and how can you think of an example that pushed boundaries?
What changed the gaming industry? What pushed boundaries? I'm sorry.
Examples of exclusive games.
Oh, exclusive games that push the boundary?
Yes.
I think because I said before, when Sony switched to their like movie games that have a very heavy focus on narrative and very minimal focus on gameplay, with the one exception probably being God of War, I think it brought in a lot of people who aren't typically gamers, quote unquote, because it doesn't ask a lot of them. Then yeah, I'm sorry, I don't think very highly of Last of Us in terms of gameplay. Story's great, but I guarantee you, 99% of people who like that game are only playing it for the story. They don't give two shits about the gameplay.
You can watch it on Amazon.
Yeah, watch season 1 and then stop. But I feel like it was groundbreaking in that sense that it brought in a lot of people who don't typically play games, I suppose.
I mean, for PlayStation specifically, I mean, Sony like makes both movies and games, so I feel like it's like the exclusive games like was like the best of both worlds for some people, not really for me, because it was like an interactive movie rather than just one or the other.
I think exclusive games tend to play a monster role in a console launch because it's kind of like your showcase of what the console can do, and since it's it's going to be a first party game and you want it to be really awesome. We get tech demos and things like that or like how many Marios can we get on a screen, which led to Pikmin and stuff. So they kind of, exclusive games are used to kind of push that console to its, peak, I guess, at least out the gate before they kind of open it up for its later life cycle. But with game development times being so damn expensive and long, that you're harder pressed now to get these exclusives, multiple exclusives on a singular console. They tend to just be like this thing that's developed for it. It comes out and then, oh, that was really cool. I can't wait to see the PS6 one. And that's kind of how I see them. It's just like way to benchmark your system and pull customers over to you. You know, I don't know what Xbox. Did Xbox launch with Halo? Like, I wasn't exactly sure, but
I don't believe so. I don't think it came out with Halo, but it put it on the map.
But when I saw Mario 64, when Mario 64 came out, or Nintendo 64, it's like, holy shit! That was crazy compared to what you were just playing, the Super Nintendo.
Yeah. I guess Mario 64 is a really good example of that, since that's still looked back on as like the prime example of 3D platforming at its finest. The other thing I just thought of was, as much as the game itself kind of sucks balls, what was that game? I think it was a PS4 exclusive that came out early in its lifespan. It was very pretty, and it was about werewolves and some shit. Corey, you played it. It was very story heavy. It was a very short game, but it looked very, very pretty. It was in like London. You had like old kind of tiny weaponry.
The Order, 1886.
Yeah. So
that game was
everyone remember
a lot of walking.
Yeah. So the game itself was shit, but it was made to show off what the PS4 can do graphically, which was impressive. The game looks awesome.
Oh yeah,
but that's all it is.
It can play that game, but it can't play Dragon Quest 11.
Yeah, right. It was the same every time. Dragon Quest 11, running out from underneath the castle and the bridge collapsed. I don't know what it is, but the PlayStation would get super loud and then kill itself. But 1886 was such a good concept. I thought the story of that was so cool, and they sequel bait you so hard, and then I was like, oh, well, that's a dead IP. There we go.
And I guess it's also like, if it doesn't revolutionize like the entire gaming space, it has the possibility to solidify a game's identity, because God of War came out as an exclusive when it was a hard pivot to a much more narrative focused game, which thank God they didn't do it fully, because I still think God of War 2016 and Ragnarok have really good gameplay as well on top of story. Isn't just a walking simulator, has great boss fights and shit. But the game was so good that it made everyone fully accept Kratos going from just, full hack and slash to we're going to stop for story every now and again and have lots of dialogue on top of having good combat. And I think we're about to see it again with DK Bonanza coming out this month. It's going to basically not only show off what the Switch 2 is capable of, but it's also going to its purpose is to reinvent Donkey Kong and also like get us used to his like redesign. So it's going to help in that aspect, and I think it's going to be really impressive. I'm really looking forward to that one.
A funny thing that happens too with these exclusive console movers that end up not doing so great is that they launch with consoles to utilize the gimmick of the console as well, not just performance test, but you have games like Lair that came out with PS3, and it was like, use the 6-axis to fly your dragon, and it's just super annoying. It was just, you have to use this mechanic. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Wii we had Wii Sports, and so that was like, this is a game that utilizes motion controls to the fullest, and this is the thing we're trying to get across that the Wii can do. And so, the fact that it was paired with it is really cool, and you get to play it. Granted, I don't want to use motion controls for everything, but Wii Sport, they were just like, this is going to show you how fun this console is. And sure enough, they weren't fucking wrong.
That's all I need.
Well, I mean, yeah, everything tried to emulate the Wii after the fact with the crappy PlayStation Move and stuff like that. The Wii paved the way for motion controls, which then also died in that same generation.
Yeah.
PlayStation's wands, and they had 3D was tried to make a push at something that kind of disappeared too.
So, I guess the next question is, so how do you feel about the trend of exclusive games eventually becoming available on other platforms? And what does this mean for brand loyalty?
It creates weird conversations.
Fucking annoying. I wouldn't have bought a PS5 had I known Tokyo or Ghostwire Tokyo was going to come to Xbox like a month after the fact.
I feel like that should be told specifically.
Well, I can understand if they don't even know if they're going to do that or not. I get it, but at that point, like, Ghostwire Tokyo had been on PlayStation and PC exclusively for I think like at least a year and a half, maybe even 2 years. So I was like, oh, it's clearly not coming off of this console. So if I want to play this game, I need to get a PlayStation 5. I could have bought it on my PC.
Contract, though?
Fuck if I know. But even
I feel like that's an important thing to have on there.
Well, it makes for weird conversations with people that get super upset that they're. I don't know where this stems from, but they're just so attached to a game like Horizon Zero Dawn. They're like, it's on PC, and you get so mad about it that other people can play the game now, and it's like, well, it was sitting in a warehouse, not making any money, so PlayStation's just, how do we milk this a little bit more? And it might also entice people to buy a PlayStation in a little bit, because it's like, well, this is the quality of games that they want the PC users to see, so that they go, maybe they'll consider buying a PS6, if they can play these games 2 years earlier, and the way that they're meant to be played, kind of thing, instead of like almost a bad port. I guess that's. I think it's fine when they do those, and specifically too, whenever there's like a PlayStation showcase or a Microsoft showcase or something or whatever. Like, we see the trailers, but I'll go find the trailers from like just some other random YouTube channel or like the company that's like producing the game, like Bandai's YouTube channel, to watch the trailer. Then at the end of it, you'll see all of the logos. So you're like, okay, this is on everything, because when you see something, you're like, I don't know if it's on PlayStation or if it's on Xbox. PlayStation showcase, they're not going to put Xbox's logos all over the thing. So after the showcase, liked on their channels to where they're going.
Like, I'm still happy that they can do it even after the fact, because I'm happy for my friend Tim, who I know has been kind of upset that he can't play Helldivers is like a game made for him. He loves that kind of shit, and because it was a PS5, PC, PlayStation 5, all he has is an Xbox. And now that it's coming, still like it's like been a year and a half since that game has released, I think, something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's nice that it's coming out and he can finally have his shot at playing Helldivers. That's great. I just people like me who went out of their way to buy a console for something, and then at the end of the day I was like, well, could have saved that $600. But
yeah.
All right, well, our final question of the day, how might crossplay evolve to create entirely new gaming experiences that bridge consoles, PC, and even mobile platforms?
Like what in the future, what can they accomplish?
Correct.
I think, ideally any multiplayer, be it PvP or PvE game, I would gladly welcome it just being fully cross-platform with everything, even mobile, as long as there's no caveats to it, because the multiplayer games ride or die on their player base, so having it literally available everywhere is only going to be beneficial, especially for queue times and stuff like that when you're trying to play the game. Because like I said, people in the Helldivers community are celebrating the fact that it's coming to Xbox. But even they're not being like, ew, I'm sure there's people like this, but no one's saying that they're crazy. But people aren't being like, ew, no, it's our PlayStation 5 treasure. We don't give it to the stinky Xbox people. People like, oh sweet, more people to fucking kill with a flamethrower. So people love that shit. It's great. And it's even the same thing, I like it. I just said I like that Musume got a release on Steam, because that means mobile and Steam people are all playing it, so you have one or the other you can play, and that just means more people to play with and a bigger community to participate in, so that's good. That's only a good thing.
Especially because if it's something you want to play and then it's a really fun multiplayer game to you, but the game's been out for a year, the cycle of players has moved on to the next thing, you'll have your diehards on it, but if you had a broader audience to where you have varied matchmaking and a liver community, it might drive more updates and more game balances and stuff like that, because it'll overall make for a cleaner experience. But it is very specific towards multiplayer games, competitive and cooperative.
Yeah, it's literally just a multiplayer issue, but like I said, it's a modern gaming multiplayer issue because it's only been an issue with online games. So the more we have online games, the more I think we're just going to see more and more crossplay being added. I prefer it always being set up front, whether they're either going to have it at launch or plan on having it, because I'd like to go into the next generation being like, you know what, I don't need an Xbox, I'm just going to get a PlayStation, because that way, if my other friends, because I have the friend group A being you guys play on PlayStation, and friend group B all play on Xbox, which leaves me in the middle, and I have to have both and subscribe to both in order to play with both. So I would like to only have to buy one console and one subscription and one game to be able to still play with everyone and being comfortable in the fact knowing I'm not going to have to worry about that in the future.
The biggest crossplay thing for me that I would love to see get just I don't know the legality of it and how impossible it might be, but whenever you set up a game account and that you try to play or something, and it's like you have to make another account, why can't you just use the account that I'm playing on from the host thing? I'm a PlayStation user, I'm an Xbox user, so why do I need to have an account with you guys? There's probably some real situation, but if there was a way to go, oh, Xbox player automate, fill data here, and then just ignore the bullshit middlemaning of third party emails needing to be involved for some dumb shit, and that you can just invite and play to whatever the matches are.
So it kind of goes a little bit to what I said earlier, that I didn't understand why exclusivity was so beneficial. Because what I don't understand is just separating your fan base by specific consoles when when actuality you're not going to have a really balanced amount for each one. So for multiplayer games, I feel like crossplay is required, at more or less in case that one side is majorly bigger than the other one. Because recently there is Anthem is shutting down its servers. Guess what Anthem doesn't have? Crossplay. So it's like for each one, depending on whatever console it is on, you have like a little bit here, a little bit here, and a little bit here. So the multiplayer like variety is probably very, very small. So you might end up playing by yourself for like an hour or until someone actually shows up, which may or may not happen. But if they were all together, then you have like, I don't know, instead of 100 here, 100 here, you have a total of like 300 total. So I feel like not having crossplay for your multiplayer game will just end up making it die faster.
Exactly.
So,
yeah, and I mean, yes, that's for software companies like EA and stuff. Crossplay makes sense. The PlayStation exclusive games that have online are definitely going to be specifically to PlayStation because they want, to provide reasons for you to buy a PlayStation, but they wouldn't sell their games on everything. But things like Anthem and people like anything that Ubisoft does or whatever, it would make way more sense for them to have crossplay because it's just smart for them.
Well, like I said, exclusivity is not it. It literally only benefits the console like creators. It does not benefit. It's not a consumer friendly practice. It is not even like a game publisher friendly practice. It only benefits people on consoles because it pushes consoles. That's it. So
do you like think this crossplay for Concord would have last longer than 2 weeks?
No, it probably would have died faster. People would have screamed at it.
It's the same thing, right? When like movies go to theater, they don't also like. I think Disney or somebody started to realize that if they did simultaneous theater releases with their streaming services, that they weren't getting any tickets or ticket sales because people
shit.
Yeah, so it's like that's basically the same thing as a multi-release of your exclusive product, and so Disney starts doing these. Well, we'll put it out on Disney Plus later, so you have to see it in theaters. But even still, it's like you're competing with my ability
to just wait. Yeah, that's like the day one question that we had. It was like, I could see it now and then maybe buy it later, or I can just see it now and then just like not buy it later because I didn't like it.
Movies obviously are completely different because you consume them by just watching it, playing the game, because, and I don't know, it's just a whole different fucking ball, but.
Well, I mean, that was the whole, I mean, it serves the same purpose because the point, I mean, they stopped doing it because no one fucking gives two shits about Disney Plus, but they wanted to, they put exclusive content on it. Netflix does it, Hulu does it. The reason for the exclusive content is to push the subscription numbers. That doesn't necessarily help the viewer count of whatever show they're pushing. It's pushing subscriptions, not that's it.
Exactly. I mean, like the only reason why I watch Peak, I have the office, and so the only reason why I'm here. So.
All right. Well, I guess we'll be wrapping it up for today. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify, Twitter, YouTube, and our Rumble channel so you never miss an episode. And to all you gamers out there, just remember to keep exploring, keep playing, keep listening. Until next time, this is the Mediocre Rumble Brothers podcast signing off. Thanks for listening.
Crossplay is mandatory.
Hey, this is Corey, and thanks for checking out Mediocre Rumble Brothers. If you liked the video, please drop a like, and if you didn't, that's fine too. If you'd like us to talk about any specific games, drop a comment below, or feel free to discuss your experience with the games that we mentioned in the episode. You can also listen to our episodes prior to YouTube on our Spotify. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon.